Hello, welcome to Aleasoft webinar. My name is Alejandro Delgado, Technical Director of Aleasoft, and thank you for joining us today in the first session of a series of webinars with the topic Prospect for the Energy Markets in Europe from 2021. As usual, our first speaker today will be Oriol Salto, Data Analysis and Modeling Director of Aleasoft, that will discuss about the evolution of the European energy markets. Then, we have several guests from Better Renewables. The CEO, Javier Asensio, will introduce the company. Then Carlos Almodóvar, Principal M&A and Financial Advisory, will talk about the auctions and their effect on the market. And Hugo Álvarez, Global Head of Technical Advisory, will discuss the importance of the technical due diligence. Please use the Q&A menu to send us any questions you may have, and we will answer them after the presentations. And now, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Oriol, please share your slides. You are in mute, Oriol.
Okay, thank you, Alejandro. I didn't click properly. Thank you, Alejandro, for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. My name is Oriol Salto. I'm in charge of data analysis and data modeling at Aleasoft, and I will be the first speaker today. Basically, okay, I will cover the first part of the of the webinar, basically showing you the evolution of the energy markets in the last weeks and last month, and talking a bit about what we are seeing from 2021 and on. So first words about Aleasoft, just before starting. We in Aleasoft offer forecasting services for the energy sector. We cover most of the energy markets in Europe, and our forecasts go from the day ahead or minutes ahead for renewable energy production forecast up to the 30 years ahead in our long-term reports. We forecast any variable that can be interesting for the energy sector, obviously market prices and market demand, but also renewable energy, weather variables, socioeconomic indexes, fuel prices, etc. And not only daily markets, also intraday markets and ancillary services. We also make all kinds of market analysis reports. We make expert reports for court proceedings and lawsuits. Also analysis on the impact on market prices of new taxes or renewable actions, or the influence of CO2 prices, basically any kind of analysis about energy markets. Our methodology is what we call ALEA models. Are models developed specifically for forecasting in the energy sectors. They are hybrid models that combine several techniques, combining techniques from classical statistical methodologies with more advanced machine learning and intelligence and artificial intelligence techniques. The main points that we like to stress about our methodologies is that it is a completely scientifically based methodology. It is only using scientific methods. They produce forecasts that are consistent over time, and basically the experience that we have executing these models on energy markets, they are models that we have been using for more than 20 years, starting in the Iberian electricity market and now covering all the major energy markets in Europe. So we all know where we are in terms of the pandemic. Right now, European countries, we are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel of this second hit of the pandemics. Governments have taken actions in order to stop the spread of the virus during this fall and the start of the winter. We will see what will be the impact in the economy and obviously also in the energy markets. It is still not clear, but looking into the future, several vaccines have been announced, but obviously they are getting to the final test, but still widespread adoption, widespread vaccination of all the population is still far away, probably not before the next winter. So let's see what the fuels and CO2 prices has been. We start with the Brent oil. This is just a historical perspective, just to see where we are sitting right now. And what we see is that in 2020, that is it about to end, so probably the average annual price will not move further than what it is right now, that is around $41 per barrel. And basically this puts us back to prices of 15 years ago, around 2004, 2005. Making a zoom on the behavior of the last weeks, in March and April, we had the drop in the due to the first hit of the pandemic. Prices recovered more or less quite fast, but about around $45 per barrel, they kind of get stanked, and right now we are sitting around $40 per barrel, and it is not clear where they will move, or if there is room still for the prices to go up. Looking at the gas prices, we see how they have been in a down. They were in a downward trend since the last quarter of 2018, but the lower prices were around May. They recovered really fast, but once they reached the 15 euros per megawatt, they can kind of stop increasing. Right now they are a little bit below 15 euros per megawatt hour. Not sure if there is still some room, because as we will see, these 15 euros are more or less the equilibrium price that the futures are seeing at the very long term. For CO2 prices, we see how this market is a lot more volatile than the gas and the Brent oil. There was a huge crash in mid-March, when the first lockdown started in the European countries, but they already recovered very fast. They overpassed the previous levels. And right now, what we have seen in the last weeks is kind of a little drop. Not sure if this is the effect of this second hit of the pandemic. As I said, it's a very volatile market, so not sure. But again, we are at very high prices. Right now, more than 27 euros per ton of CO2. And let's look at the electricity markets. I obviously will not have time to go through all the markets in detail. You can go to our website. There you can see what are all the reports that we are doing on electricity markets and the energy markets in general. So basically covering any aspect of the energy markets that can be of your interest. Basically, I will go more or less fast through the evolution of the demand and prices of the main electricity markets in Europe. Looking at how the demand has been behaving in this year 2020 compared to 2019, the previous year. And what we see is that basically already in January, February, so before the first hit of the pandemic, the demand was already in all countries a little bit below of the levels of last year. And we see that as in all the countries, the great impact of the first hit of the pandemic, so with demands dropping down like more than 15% in most of the countries in March, and mainly in April also, and how they more or less recovered during the summer. Then obviously we also have to take into account that demand is very sensitive to temperatures, in some countries more sensitive than other countries. But if we look at how October and November is behaving, we see kind of an important drop in the demand very remarkable in some countries in November. So it's difficult to say if this drop is exclusive, is just the consequence of the second heat, because comparing the temperatures in November from last year to this year temperatures has been much warmer. So countries that are very sensitive to the temperature, like France and UK, this huge drop in the demand is probably mainly to the weather conditions. So probably there is some impact on of the economic, this second heat of the economic crisis, but probably most of it is due to the weather conditions. Looking at how the price in the electricity markets has behaved, as we can see already in January and February, we started the year with prices levels much lower than last year. We can see that the deepest fall was around March, April, and June, in May, sorry, and then it recovered. It recovered quite far. Most of the countries already recovered or passed the prices in 2019, and right now maybe they are basically a little lower, a little above, but basically we can say with some volatility, obvious, but they are mostly recovered. As we will see, it's not very solid recovery, but at least the level right now is more or less at the level of last year. Making a let's see how the forward curves in the future markets are looking for Brent oil. As I said, the price right now is around $41. Equilibrium prices at the long term, they are at around $50. So there's still some room for the price of the oil to go a little bit upper. In the gas prices, the equilibrium, it's around at the long term, it's around 15 euros per megawatt hour. That's the level prices that we're having right now. So probably there's some probability that the price will stay there at least for some time. Looking at the future of power markets, we are seeing for next year, for most of the markets, prices above 40 euros per megawatt hour. Take into account that 2020 will close around 30, 32, 35 euros per megawatt hour. So basically, future markets are seeing nearly a full recovery of the prices in next year, in 2021. And let's talk a little bit about what we are seeing in the future. So when forecasting power market prices, what we have to take into account. So as we have seen, gas prices, CO2 prices kind of look that they have fully recovered, but it's important to understand that there is still a great uncertainty. The global economy, it's not fully recovered. There are still important uncertainties. So not so at the midterm, we are not seeing this recovery as something that is quite solid. Looking at the electricity demand and the electricity prices, as we have seen, it's not clear how this second hit has had an impact on demand and prices. So, as I said, also due to the uncertainty on the fuel prices, uncertainty on how the demand and electricity prices has recovered. If this recovery is solid enough or not, it's still in question, let's say. And okay, as we have the announcement of the vaccine being ready more or less soon, what it makes is the long term a little bit clear. but again, at the long term, things didn't change much, but it can put some I will go to the next one because it will start talking about the same. So as I said, the announcement of the vaccine can have some impact on the midterm, but again, not very solid. But it also confirms what we were seeing at the long term, that is that the equilibrium prices, the equilibrium of the market is very close to it was before the crisis. We will talk about it later in the but renewable capacity actions can have an impact in this energy market, mainly at in the long term, but also in the midterm. And anyway, in the energy sector in Europe, it continues having advancing in a good pace, in a good rate. It is there is still an appetite for investments. So the growth in renewable capacity, it's despite the crisis, it goes at a good rate. So energy sector is robust enough in Europe. And just remember the importance of having a reliable price forecasting at the long term. It is a crucial input of your financial models. So it is important in order to have to see the viability of a project at the long term. It's important to have a clear vision of the prices in the future, and for that it's important to have a robust financial model based on reliable long-term price forecasting. And just a quick reminder of everything that I say. It's not clear how this second hit has impact on the energy markets. We are still in a scenario with great uncertainties. At the long terms, things are more or less clearer. They were not many changes with respect to the previous levels before the crisis. And the investment in renewable energies, at least in Europe, is kept at a good rate. And just remember how important it is to have reliable price forecasting. And just let me finish inviting you to our next webinar. It will be the second part of this webinar. It will be held on January 14th. It will be the first webinar of next year. And in that occasion, we will have invited the speakers from PricewaterhouseCoopers. And we will again talk about the evolution of the energy market, financing of renewable energy projects, and in that occasion we will focus on PPAs for large energy consumers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uriol, for the presentation. And now, Javier Asensio, CEO of Vector Renewables, will give us an introduction of the company. Thank you for joining us, Javier.
Hi, good morning, everybody. And thank you very much to Aliasoft and Antonio, Alejandro, and Oriol for your invitation to participate today in this seminar. So today we are going to speak about several topics in the one for the Spanish market and the auctions, what is happening in renewable energies in Spain, and the auctions that are going to start in few weeks. And then the second topic will be more general, not necessarily for Spain, but in general is the importance of technical due diligences for the financing of projects. So those are the two topics that we are going to introduce today. But before that, I wanted to give you a very brief introduction about Vector Renewables. Vector has been in renewable energies for a long time. Actually, one of the main companies dedicated to technical advisory and asset management that started in 2005. Now, 15 years might not be a very long time overall in the life of companies, but in the life of renewable energies in Europe, it is definitely a long time. So we have gathered a very strong experience across several countries. And we are now today, we have grown a lot. We are now today in 10 different countries, and we've got a team of more than 200 experts in those jurisdictions. Basically, what we do is asset management, and that implies all the technical side, but also what we call the commercial side, and that is the administration of the SPVs, the administration of the companies that hold the projects. Also, we are very well known in technical advisory. We've got more than 60 gigawatts of experience across the world, and not only in the 10 countries where we are, but also in many other countries where we just do trips in and out to check assets and to check the conditions of specific transactions. No? So we help with our technical advisory during the transactions and the financing of the projects as well. Apart from asset management and technical advisory, we also have a department that works in M&A. We do financial modeling, financial structuring, and actually Carlos Almodóvar is going to, from this department, is going to introduce later the topic of the auctions in Spain. We also have legal advisory in Spain. Legal obviously is not something very scalable in many countries, but in the particular case of Spain, we've got a strong team that also does legal services. In this slide, you can see where we are. We are very strong in Europe with the headquarters in Spain, but also very strong in Italy, the UK and France. Out of Europe, we are very strong in Japan and Mexico. And then we've got some smaller offices in Australia, Sweden, Bulgaria, and the US. And that is following our customers that they've got assets in different countries. So we went following the trends and the investments in renewable energies, and that's why we are in so many countries. In asset management, we've got more, well, actually, it says in the presentation 2.9, but we are now above, just above 3 gigawatts of assets under management, which make us one of the most important independent service providers for asset management in Europe. And this is it. So I leave you now with my colleague Carlos Almodóvar, and later on we will have the presentation from Hugo Álvarez in the technical advisory department for and its importance for financing projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Javier. Good morning to everybody, and of course, thank you to Aliasoft now from bringing us this opportunity to share our thoughts in some of the most, or what we believe are the most relevant topics in the renewable energy sector. So I will be talking, let me just share a presentation. So I will be talking about the new auction scheme that has been recently published, and of course the very first question would be to understand or maybe to assess why launching this energy and this auction scheme. So what is the reason for launching the auction scheme? I would say there are 4 key factors according to the legislation already published. That would be the first one, to implement the economic regime for renewable energy as included under Royal Decree 960, already approved, recently approved at the beginning of November, in which the only path to be granted with this new economic shall be through public auctions to be called by the government. Second one would be to meet the challenging targets the government has included in the National Plan for Climate Change up to 2030, which requires continuous penetration of renewable energy in the Spanish mix. Also, and probably one of the factors the government has mostly highlighted is the access to financing of the renewable energy projects. We all here know that renewable energy finances is based on project cash flows stability, and so this economic regime is exactly aimed at granting renewable energy projects with a fixed long-term energy price. And last but not least, of course, is the intention to push downwards the cost of electricity and of course translating this cost saving to lower bills for retail consumers, for end consumers. So this would be, I do believe these 4 points are the key factors driving the new economic regime to be approved, that has been approved, and the auction scheme that is going to be approved in the coming weeks. So next question would be if these auctions are really needed. No, honestly, there is plenty of opinions in relation to if this auction scheme is needed or not. In any case, but if we stick to the information, to the available information, and if we have a quick look at Red Eléctrica de España monthly reports with regards to the access and connection request, we may see that as of September 30th, the last, which is I'm pretty sure is the last report that has been published, there are above 120 gigawatt of solar and wind projects that have been already granted with access and connection permits. No? So this shows or these numbers are far above of the targets that have been included in the National Plan for Climate Change. No? So to be honest, and according to these figures, it seems that the Spanish renewable energy market was already attractive, you know, with any visibility on any auction calendar, as in 2018, 2019, and the beginning of 2020, there was, of course, everybody knows that the government intention was to establish or to define some kind of incentive system, but we did not have any visibility, and of course the numbers of the renewable energy sector were really good. You know? So besides not having any kind of incentive, the different stakeholders, I mean, these are financial investors, IPPs, CPC contractors, PV module manufacturers, are highly keen to establish in Spain as strong players. No? So we have seen lately high asset rotations and also significant deals published in the media, where both national and also international actors are continuously acquiring huge pipelines from developers, no? mainly local developers, but also international developers who have an important track record here in Spain. So let's move to the next slide. Sorry. Here. So moving in or entering into how the auctions have been defined, of course, it is quite difficult to run to perform a detailed analysis of all the legislation that has been already published. You know, we have only 10-12 minutes here, but I will try to go through the most relevant aspects of this legislation. No? So it is important to highlight at this point that the only way not to be granted with the economic regime is through the public auctions. You know? So the truth is that how first auction will work and also the auction calendar up to 2025 is yet to be approved. I mean, the legislation, Royal Decree 960 has been approved, but the subsequent legislation, Orden Ministerial, has been issued, has been under public consultation, but has not been yet approved. So this, all the comments here in this presentation, and of course the information included, is subject to being approved. No? So if we looked at the most relevant aspects, I mean, the first one would be, I'm not included in the slide because it is quite obvious, is the product, the auction product. No, and in this case, the government has decided to auction the capacity, and of course the parameter to be awarded would be the electricity price, no, assigned to that quota of capacity you are bidding for. Moving a little bit forward, and in regards to the first relevant aspect is related to the technology quota. No? This criteria follows the one used in the past 2017, in which the overall quota is split in different quotas depending on the bidding technology. You know? So we would see a specific quota for the solar PV, a specific quota for the onshore wind, and also a specific quota for other minority technologies. So at the end, it seems that the onshore wind and of course solar PV are getting the bigger chunk of this auction quota for the next 5 years. Aside from the technology, but still in relation with the quotas, it should be noted that it was initially considered under the Royal Decree 960 to grant a specific quota for small projects. The truth is that according to the proposal already issued, it is not clear, or it is not expected that a specific quota shall be allocated to small projects, no? Which is something I believe it's important to allow, let's say, small players to come into the auction and participate. So in any case, we would need to wait for the final document to be approved. And of course, once the Orden Ministerial is approved, you maybe all know that a subsequent legislation, the resolution calling the auction, shall define some of the parameters that will apply to the first auction. So the next relevant aspect of the auctions is what I have called the non-nominative. No, this means that bidders may bid for capacity without the need to identify specific projects at the moment the auction is running. No, this pre-qualification scheme also follows the criteria used in 2017 auctions. So as we will see after, bidders should then have bidders that have been awarded then should have between 8 and 11 months to identify the specific projects that will try to be granted with the economic regime if they meet with the requirements. So another important aspect is related to warranties. I mean, warranties, as happened with the quota and the pre-qualification process, have been defined as following the criteria of 2017 auctions. Therefore, the warranties required to attend the auction amount 60 euros per kilowatt. So in this case, the warranties, the system to release or to execute the warranties is related to 3 different milestones, which are the project identification, the construction administrative permit achievement, and finally the commercial operation date. But we will see that afterwards in a specific slide related to the development challenges. A new aspect, the auction is bringing, and I'm moving to the last one, is related to the quota here downwards. the new auction has introduced a specific maximum quota to be awarded to one company or a group of companies, which indeed is relevant. In any case, this quota may be modified in the subsequent legislation only downwards and not upwards. So maybe we may see in the final text that the maximum quota is lower than 50%. The solar PV parameters is something also important in relation to this auction. No, we see that solar PV parameters or the capacity for solar PV projects follows the criteria used in the past, where the capacity is related to peak power and not to nominal power. No, so in this case, it seems that this is something that maybe probably would represent a disadvantage for the solar PV projects, but we will see that later on also. And also the minimum equivalent hours set for the solar PV technology seems to be really challenging. I mean, 1800 minimum threshold for the solar PV is something that I do believe is challenging, you know, to be achieved. You know. Finally, the storage. I mean, this is the first time that specific incentives have been defined for the storage technology. You know, so the incentive is mainly focusing on enhancing project cash flows through higher capture prices to compensate the increase in capex and opex, you know, related to the storage system. Sorry.
Sorry, Carlos, can you do full screen for the presentation, please?
Sorry, I thought it was on full screen. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So if we move forward and we try to assess or to anticipate how the auctions may impact the renewable energy sector, I would say that one of the most relevant or one of the first impact that come to my mind is related to the small and medium players. I think they may find it difficult to participate in these auctions. The key factor here is related to guarantees. Now it is true that the auction guarantees 60 euros per kilowatt is the same as in 2017, but the difference is that realizing that now the access and connection guarantees are much higher than 2017, 40 euros per kilowatt instead of 10 euros per kilowatt. So now the difference I think is relevant, and this may represent an impossible requirement to be fulfilled by the small players. It is also important to note that according to the maximum quota to be awarded to the same company or group of companies of the 50% of the total quota that's been auctioned, I think that's also may facilitate the concentration, the portfolio concentration, and that also could represent a barrier for the small and medium players. Then let's say that the soft, what I call the market speculation, maybe the word speculation is not the best to be included in a presentation, but I think that the soft pre-qualification process by which bidders willing to attend the auction do not need to identify the projects in advance. Together with, and this soft pre-qualification process, together with a post-auction very strict process in which awarded bidders must stick to let's say a strict milestone schedule to identify the project, to reach the construction administrative permit, would probably push bidders to look into the market eager for seeking eligible projects to match with awarded capacity. We have seen that in the past after 2017 auctions, and of course, as the system or the scheme is more or less the same, I would say that this is likely to happen again. The truth is that, and according to the market situation, where we all know that acquisition prices are still increasing, the truth is that there is not too much room for the equity to keep offering higher prices for projects under development. Moreover, if the bid prices are as competitive as it could be expected. So moving into and in relation to the solar PV parameters, it seems that these parameters set up may penalize this technology. Firstly, because of the capacity definition, as stated before, which still considers the solar PV capacity as the peak power and not as the nominal power. So if we consider that this is a capacity auction, seems pretty obvious that this could represent a significant disadvantage. And secondly, due to the minimum net equivalent hours setting 1800 as the minimum threshold, may leave many regions in the Spanish landscape out of the auction due to the simple reason of the location, which seems to be unfair and maybe against the principle of equality. So I think this minimum equivalent hours parameter for the solar PV is quite aggressive. Maybe one of the most expected consequences the auction scheme may bring is the storage deployment. Batteries technologies still needs to evolve, to improve performance and to be profitable to the equity. But in any case, there are many investors and developers. We have pretty much a lot of contact with all of them that are already including storage systems or considering to include storage systems in their layouts. As capex is likely to decrease fast, as happened in the past with the solar PV capex, that has an incredible downward trend in relation to the capex. So I think auctions are trying to encourage storage in these regards. And the way is providing them with the possibility of capturing a higher price. However, and we will talk about the price afterwards. There are some caveats there with the price to be received by the storage system. Economic regime is aimed, among others, to boost. Is aimed at boosting the renewable energy penetration in order to meet with the challenging targets included in the national plan for climate change. In any case, I think that this auction scheme should try to grant that the awarded projects or try to be sure that the awarded projects meet all the requirements and reach COD within deadlines. The point is that the COD deadlines here in Spanish, fecha límite de disponibilidad de instalación and fecha de expulsión del régimen económico de energías renovables are still not defined. I mean, this definition or these parameters are to be defined in the final resolution calling them the auctions. And finally, one of the I would say that another of the most relevant impact the auction system is expected to bring to the market is related to the improvement of financing. Renewable energy projects are granted by non-recourse finance, which mainly relies on the predictable and stable cash flows. And so this new economic regime setting a long-term fixed price may bring this financing to the green energy projects. In any case, I think that financing will depend in some factors and some aspects that are really important, such as the term. We have seen that the initial term or the preliminary definition for the term would be from 10 to 15 years, and exceptionally maybe extended to 20 years. But that's something for some specific projects now. So we will talk later on in relation to the financing. So what are other impacts that may come to the renewable energy projects? The first one would be the revenue stream. I mean, if there is a specific capture price, I have called it capture price, and there's a specific formula to calculate what would be the capture price for an awarded project under the new economic regime. No? So as seen in the formula, the real price a bidder will receive if awarded in the auction is not exactly the price it bid during the auction. No? If we look at this formula, you may see there are two different components: the bid price and a second component or second element, which is related to the market exposure. Now, at the end, the bid price is being offset by the difference between the pool price and the bid price, weighted by a K factor, which I call it here in this formula for simplicity, the K factor, which is called or defined under the legislation as the market adjustment factor. This K factor is set at 0.05 for non-manageable technologies and 0.25 for those that are manageable. This is when talking about manageable technologies, we are referring to those projects including storage systems, including battery systems. No? In any case, we should be careful. I think we should be careful when considering the K factor for storage as an incentive. No? Of course, if the pool price is above the bid price, then the market offset will be higher, so be higher, driven by the 0.25 K factor. But if the pool price is below the bid price, then that offset would be negative, and the higher K factor would enhance that negative effect. No, and at the end, the storage system may be capturing a lower price. No. There is also a key factor, pretty difficult for me to translate it to English. I mean, the precio de exención de cobro is related, defines a pool price threshold below which the capture price will be exactly the pool price. I mean, not the applicable formula wouldn't be the one above we have already described. I mean, this is something relevant. I think this is something relevant. This threshold has been initially defined at €0 per megawatt, but in any case, Royal Decree 960 defines or states that the threshold can be modified by later or subsequent, let's say, legislation. I think this may represent a risk to be considered, in cases the government or the competent authority decides to define a higher precio de exención de cobro. No? In relation to financing, well, I mean, the Spanish market is going through an important concentration process. Recently, we all have seen in the newspapers, in the media, the concentration process running by the big banks here in Spain. And we have had some conversations, preliminary conversations with the financial entities to understand what is how are they receiving this new legislation, and the answer is pretty much the same for all of them. The truth is that the appetite for full merchant projects is very limited in Spain, and I think it might have decreased in the last months. No. On the other side, PPA market is still limited in Spain, far away, really far away from covering all the renewable energy projects that are under development or reaching the ready-to-build status. No? So So at this point, auctions may bring those predictable cash flows that sponsors are willing and lenders are requesting. So let's see. But as I stated before, projects awarded under auctions are not necessarily bankable. I mean, auction bankability will mainly rely in some very relevant aspects. Of course, the most important, or one of the most important, would be the price level. Auctions are expected to be competitive according to similar auctions that have been launched in the past in some other countries, showing low prices. So in those cases with significantly low prices, low bid prices, project may not be bankable, as lender may see or may perceive credit risk due to low cash flows. In some other cases in which the bid price may allow project finance because of a higher level, it might be the case that bid price is not high enough to reach acceptable debt ratios. I mean, at the end of the day, sizing the debt of a project would depend on the level of the cash flow. So it may be the case that besides being bankable, the project, the level of debt ratios is not enough to reach the expected equity returns. The other aspect, really important aspect related to the bankability of the projects, of renewable energy projects, is related to the term. I mean, it appears that 15 years could be enough or could allow appropriate or positive, let's say, financing structures. In any case, 10 years, I would say that it is definitely too short. But I would say that as the door is open, I would say that 20 years term would really enhance financing conditions. And finally, let's say the indexation, the price indexation, as defined in the different legislation, the bidding price is flat, and this is something that compared to the operating costs that are of course indexed to CPI, that's something that may penalize future cash flows, reducing the financing capabilities of the projects.
Carlos, I suggest that you start finishing. We still have a presentation with Hugo,
yes,
so
sorry.
Please 1 more minute and we pass to Hugo.
Thank you. Sure. Thanks, Javier, for the heads up. Okay, so moving forward, how the auctions will impact in the renewable energy. I would say there are two different challenges, the development challenge and the operating challenge. The development challenge is more related to the milestone calendar or the milestone schedule all bidders must stick to, in relation to the registration of the capacity in the register, in relation to the identification of the projects that would need to match the awarded capacity, and also related to the construction, administrative permit, approval. The periods there are the maximum periods, and one of the most important periods is related to when the projects need to be connected to the grid, which that is still to be defined in the resolution calling the auction. So I would say there is a development challenge. And there is also an operating challenge. I mean, there are some important obligations in relation to the energy delivered to the grid. In this case, as the product that has been auctioned is the capacity, the minimum energy, the minimum auction energy is related to the to the capacity awarded, the minimum equivalent hours that we have been discussing previously in related to the solar PV, but all the technologies have defined specific parameters for the minimum equivalent hours, and of course the term. That's the minimum auction that any bidder must deliver to the grid. And also there are some intermediate control milestones, where the government or the competent authority may control the intermediate energy the project is delivering to the grid. No, and of course penalties linked to both to the energy delivery to the grid. But I have no time to do that. No, and finally, and really quick, just here a bunch of services from Vector Neos related to the auctions. No, financial modeling to help investors or developers to perfectly modelize the projects, helping with the bid strategy, of course related to the storage from a technical and financial standpoint, and of course our regulatory and legal team may support in any legal related issue with the auction. And a lot of and apologies to sorry, I got a lot of time, sorry for that.
Thank you, Carlos. I think we can pass now to Alejandro.
Okay, no, don't worry, Carlos. Thank you for the presentation. And now, Hugo, if you're ready, please share your slides. Hugo, you are on mute.
Yeah, so sorry, thank you very much, Carlos, for your presentation, and Alejandro for your introduction, and to Aliassoft for sure for letting us to participate in this webinar. I try to go through very quick in order to several aspects about the technical due diligence. The idea is to not just to have an exhaustive description about what a technical due diligence is or what parts that you have, but rather than include some tips and some points in order to take into consideration when we have a technical due diligence. Okay, this is part of the process of a project finance. For sure, the technical due diligence, the legal due diligence, insurance due diligence, sometimes financial due diligence also are very important in order to protect the financial banks and to let them know what are the projects they are going to invest. Okay. During the presentation are focused on the renewable sector, but mainly of several tips regarding the solar, which is during the last years in the European markets are going to call. Okay, so very quick, what is a technical due diligence? Okay, a technical due diligence is just a process of analyzing, evaluating the technology, the product, everything related to the technical aspects of a project before the construction, before the bank invests on this. One very important point, and that's something which sometimes is very controversial. Who is the recipient of the technical advice, of the technical due diligence, the technical, legal, whatever, in a project finance? Who is the owner in the end? The point here is that the tricky thing is that the sponsor is going to pay for that. So he's going to pay for all of the costs, including the due diligence, apart from those specific cases regarding multilateral institutions or something like that. That's the most common say. But in the end, which is the recipient or the client for the lender technical advisor is the bank, the financial entity. That's very controversial sometimes because in the sponsor side, having a service provider paying for that, and in the end, the recipient of the report are other one is a bit tricky, as I told you. And sometimes there have several controversies, but the truth is that the real client, the actual client, is the financial bank, is the financial entity, the bank. Why? Because they are putting a risk in a project finance. They are investing more than 70–80% of the total capex. So in the end, they are putting a risk at least during the 15 years, 20 years. So it's very important to understand that that this is the client, but the client and the sponsor and the bank should be aligned, because in the end, the interests are the same, which is protect the project. Everybody wants that the project is going to be built in a better way, with a better technical characteristics, the better equipment, the better design, and in the end, with the highest profitability as possible. So what is asking for the bank is asking also for the owner. So that's very important. A technical due diligence basically has two main goals. first of all, in order to analyze what are the main issues or the main risks you have in this project, if you are going to invest in the project, regarding several aspects, mostly technical in this case, of the project. And second one, in order to help the financials to verify all of the assumptions of the financial model. Those technical aspects should be verified during the technical due diligence, and those things should be aligned. So if we go through the key issues matrix, which is the first thing, finding the issues, there are at least four main group of aspects to analyze. As I told you, it's most focused on the solar, but this is very, very similar if we're talking about any other renewable project. Okay, the site conditions, what are the technology, the design, how is the plant which is going to be built. Sometimes, many times, the technical advisor is also addresses to review the administrative and permitting procedure of the project, because there are many pure technical aspects. So the legal advisor try to avoid to enter into review some technical aspects and technical requirements, and also the contracts, either for the construction, for the operation during the long term, sometimes the PPA, if any, asset management of so. If we see the site conditions, what the site conditions basically review the site, visit the site, see, okay, the plan is on the project is going to be built in this site. Is suitable, is not suitable, is there any risk? That's the thing, okay? Is basically there are several environmental analyses, several structural, geotechnical analysis, and so on. Is assumed that if this project is going to be built in a short time, everything should be done before by the sponsor, but that's something that will be to be rechecked. Several things in order to take into consideration. First of all, the site conditions not very clear at the beginning. Many of the underground, how is the soil, what are the geotechnical conditions. So it's very, very important to ensure that this is already included in the design. So review everything in total, or hazard analysis, something about earthquakes or something like that is very, very important to cover that. Any other things, obstacles, facilities. Unfortunately, we used to see in many cases that, okay, everything is correct, the papers are okay. When you go to the site, oh my God, there is something, a building, a facility, a pipeline, which is not included in any other condition, either the land contract or developing or whatever, very old or whatever. So you need to remove that. You need to deal with that. So that's something that you have to let aware in advance. In the case of solar, sometimes it's very, very normal. There are no analysis about the horizon, about the shadows, eternal shadows. There is something which is not specifically in the project site, but close to the project site and impacting on that, and it's very, very important. That's why visit the site is mandatory, in my opinion, and I think almost 100% of the lender technical advisor is something like that, because nowadays sometimes the sponsor tries to reduce the cost and whatever, and they say visit is one of the most expensive parts of the technical due diligence. So that's something, but it's very, very, very critical. And on top of that, as I said before, the land surveys, very detailed land surveys, covering the whole plan. Very, very critical for wind farms, for example, very critical for the foundations, for the solar plants, also to the foundations of the trackers, whatever. Many of the problems with the EPC contractors and the sponsors are during the construction are discussing about the soil conditions. The condition is not what we expected, the land survey was not good, this kind of things. And something that sometimes you don't take into consideration is there any other external operation we may impact on the construction operation? Sometimes we have something, a business, which is impacting because there are many trucks ongoing because there is, for example, something which is caused dirt or whatever. That's something that it could be then, or for example, there is a plant in the middle of a town or a village, so you are impacting on that. So that's something very important in order also to check when you analyze the site conditions. If you see a technology, is the most technical part. The technology is the design, how is the plant is going to be built, what are the main equipment to be installed, and so on. It should be noted that it should be in mind that the plant is not going to be there for just a couple of years or finish the construction. No, it's going to be in a long term, 10 years, 30 years, 20 years, 25, 35, even 40 is the lifespan nowadays in many of the solar projects. You have to review everything with this goal. Okay, it's not just a matter of, okay, I am covering a couple of years. No, it's everything. That's why it's very important that the manufacturers of the main equipment are the strong companies, are well-known manufacturers, are with a good track record. I know that seeing in the future, in 20 years, saying that each company is going to be alive and in order to respond about the warranties and so on is impossible. And in the renewable market, we have many of the cases of even big companies going on bankruptcy in less than 2 years. But the truth is that at least you have to do now that what you are, the manufacturers you are trying to use are stronger as much as stronger as possible. And the other thing is the warranty package. Very important. The warranty package are becoming more and more restrictive, more restrictive of the manufacturer point of view. The manufacturers, the state of the art in the renewable sector is growing, so it's improving a lot. So the warranties are covering more and more. So it's important that to have that. If you are considering now that the project is going to be built in the coming years, in the coming year, in the short term, you have to have the best nowadays, the best in the state of the art of the warranty package. Why? Because probably in the next couple of years, the warranties are going to be improved. So you have to be in the best now in order to not get older in the coming future. When you analyze the design of the equipment, it's not just related to those aspects which is producing the energy. Of course, this is the most important thing, but nowadays when the plants are going to be bigger and bigger, and even the portfolios are bigger and bigger because the owner has many gigawatts, it's very important those systems that in the past were considered as ancillary or not other systems, always other systems or non-important systems, like the communication. The communication should be a very strong communications with the maximum standards, and the SCADA system, the monitoring system, very, very important. And in the case of solar, for sure, the security system, but the analyzing and having a proper systems in order to know in the future what is happening from your office in your headquarters is very, very important. One, I don't know, a star or many specific thing, the grid compliance. For example, in the case of Spain, the transposition of the European grid code was done this year, and adapting that, ensuring that your plant is adapted to the grid code is absolutely critical now. So that means that you have to, everything in the design should be in according to the grid code. Sometimes it's easy to understand that it's it, but it's not so clear in many cases, in order that the grid code is not going, the compliance to the grid code is not going to impact your production. Because one of the other things, the design should be absolutely optimized with the goal. The goal is the euro per kilowatt hour. It's not the euro, it's not the kilowatt, it's the euro per kilowatt hour. So it's very, very important that everything you have is not going to reduce the production or impacting the capex. Another very specific thing that is, I don't know, becoming a star during the last months in in the case of the PV plants built in the south of Spain, the structural calculation of the trackers. There is a problem with the trackers. I think many of you are aware about the big issues during the last year in several big plants in Spain regarding the trackers, regarding the wind loads, and so on. It's very important to verify and carefully the structural calculation. The standards, the international standards about the structural calculation of the trackers are not so restrictive now, are a bit behind what the market is. So the point is, you cannot be comfortable if, okay, I compliance with the standards. No, it's not enough. Absolutely, it's not enough. Very quick, the other things regarding the administrative part, you have to check together with the legal advisor if the project is really ready to build in order to start. In many cases, when you enter in a technical diligence, you see, oh my God, there is a pending paper, a pending permit. So that's a delay. This is not ready to build now. What are the requirements included in environmental impact assessment, included in all of the permits? Because sometimes the design was done before the last permit, and there is something which should be taken into consideration during the design, and it's not. In the same for the interconnection, there are several costs to be performed by the TSO, for example. You have to have a very good matching between your schedule and the schedule of the interconnection. If not, you are going to build a plant and you cannot connect. So it's not a thing. And regarding the land, something which is very obvious, but again and again is a problem we find in many of the technical diligence. Please ensure that all of your plots, including the layout, are matching, are overlapping in 100%. Sometimes there is a pending lot, a pending plot, there is something for the interconnection, something like that. In the same for the contracts, the legal advisor check all of the legal things, but the technical should review everything, either the warranties, the scopes, and so on. Maybe APC, but very important, the O&M contract. Sometimes the O&M is putting aside about a secondary contract or whatever, but it's very important that the O&M sometimes signed together with APC, with EPC contract. Is very important. The high quality of the O&M that is very good in price, very good in scope. And regarding the EPC itself, the renewable plants and overall the solar ones, the photovoltaics, are becoming bigger and bigger. So we are not talking about tiny plants, we are talking about industrial plants. So it's very important that the quality assurance, the testing is critical. You cannot go into check 100% of the plant every day or even every year during the O&M. So you have to be sure that before to install each main equipment has been tested, and you have a traceability, you have all of the tests, you ensure that the quality of your equipment are very good. So proper quality testing package should cover either the test at the factory before to shipment, either the test at the site, the test during the commissioning or the provisional acceptance, and the test in the final acceptance. Sometimes you forget about the final acceptance. Okay, everything is correct. No. You have to recheck everything because you are going to have the plan from the year 2, year 3, after the warranty period, up to the year 25, 30, or even more. And the other thing, very specific. Sometimes what we see is that the liquidated damages are not properly calculated. It's a tiny thing, but it's very important in many cases. Either because the liquidated damages are not calculated for the whole life of the plant. Sometimes it's, okay, you have a warranty period, I cover your loss of production during these 2 years. No. If during these 2 years you are not able to reach the minimum performance you have, or a minimum availability in the case of the wind, okay, that means that you are not going to cover for the rest of the life. So you have to compensate for that. Net present value of this, 100%, or it depends, but you have to compensate that because we are not going to have a plan for, I don't know, 100% 100% of what you're guaranteeing is even less. At the same time, we see in many cases that some very strongly weighted damages schemas are very good, but they are deactivated in a certain way because the liquidated caps are very low. For example, if you pass part of the warranties to the O&M, the caps in the O&M are very, very low in comparison with the EPC contract. No matter how you calculate the damages, how much it is, or whatever, if your cap is very tiny, you are not protected at all. Okay, that's just very quick. These better things are key issues of a PV plant which you can find. Very important to understand that some of the risks is very obvious. It's very important to also that the technical advisor understand that everybody there, the EPC contract, the sponsor, the bank, what he wants is the same, is to build a plant, the best plant, the most profitable plant in the world. So it's a win-win for everybody. So the technical advisor has to going on board on that. I mean, if you have an issue, you have to have a mitigation, and you have to understand what is the whole process of the technical due diligence. You cannot put at risk a project because there is a very specific technical things or whatever. You cannot block a project. Okay. So just very quick, some of them are already considered about the technology, the inconsistency in the structural matter. One thing about the warranties should be, you have to get a letter of confirmation that the warranties should be applicable for specifically for the project in order to avoid any time discussion or whatever, and something like that. So the other thing, the other part of the technical due diligence is just to verify that the assumptions of the financial models are good, okay? So that's covered typically the production in order to ensure the revenues, what is the COPEX, what is the CAPEX, what is the MRAs for the, in the case for inverters, large maintenance, modules, whatever, what is the lifespan or the sensitivity, the MRA, the provisions for the maintenance is very important in order to link everything about that. Sometimes the sponsors try to reduce the cost of your O&M, but that means that the MRA is going to be higher. So you have to balance about that. If you are going to have a very good, a very comprehensive O&M, you are going to reduce the MRA. So that's something that's very important to have everything linked. And the same for the lifespan. If you want to extend the lifespan beyond the module warranties, for example, in the case of solar, or even in the case of the wind, beyond 20 or 25, you have to think about the MRA is going to be included. That's for sure. It's just a matter of cost. Okay. And regarding specifically the production, and then that's my final, because I think I'm out of time. It's regarding the production. Okay. Several things regarding the production, which is valid for almost everything. First of all, the difference between estimated and guaranteed, again, is very obvious. It's very obvious that one is estimated, what is guaranteed. But in many cases, what the sponsor wants, or even the bank wants, is, okay, why the EPC contractor doesn't guarantee this, which is the maximum? No, it's not the same. You have an estimation, but you have to understand that the EPC contractor is not going to guarantee the 100% of the estimation. They have to have a buffer about that. So that's the difference. Other thing is that uncertainty. When we analyze that uncertainty analysis, something that I think is becoming already almost standard in the market, but sometimes we have to explain in a better condition. The uncertainty for the specific production 1 year is higher than the specific if you consider a whole period of 10 years or 15 years. So no matter what, if 1 year you are not able to reach the expected production, but probably in the full period, which is your important thing about that. The other thing is that related specifically for solar, the ground data, that's something that is mandatory for the wind, for example, or even for thermal solar or whatever, or other plants, but not in the case of solar PV. I think that's something that it should be, and it should be becoming very important now. The albedo measurements are very important because the density is very, very high. The idea about the diffuse radiation, that's something. The cost of ground measurements is less than several tens of Ks, talking about projects of several tens of millions. So I think it is worthy to have a proper measurement data on site. Well, that's it. That's I try to go very quick, and thank you very much for your time, and I hope it was interesting for all of the attendants.
Thank you, Hugo, for your presentation, and also Oriol, Javier, and Carlos for their presentations, and the audience for joining. We will answer your questions directly by email. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you.